Griffith.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I look forward to working with the gentlelady in regard to a number of items. It's interesting that we just had a bill today, and I'm not sure, I haven't sorted it all out yet, it was voice voted, where we cut advocates or defenders in the juvenile courts, we cut them out of getting some grant money. I'm sorting it all out, and I was going to vote present if it had come up for a recorded vote, because if you were watching the first panel, my wife is a juvenile judge, and they cut that money as well. And so I wanted to check on that. Ms. Abbott, you all had 108 children. Can you tell me how long it took you all to get them back, what the shortest and longest was back with their parents?
I don't have that information.
Roughly, do you have any ideas? I won't hold you to it exactly.
Okay, roughly 54 days.
About 54 days.
It's our average.
Okay.
But I can't tell you this, yeah. The earliest and the fast. Because we're used to reunifying children all the time, even before we were aware that there was going to be a new policy, we were already in the process of reunifying children. Even when they'd been separated, we've been talking to parents in detention centers and identifying other relatives if the parent didn't want the child to remain in foster care. I think one of the things we have to emphasize is that we need to talk with parents. Parents have a right to make decisions about their children and how to keep their children safe and where their children belong. Many families may choose to have their children stay with a relative in the United States than be reunified with them in country because it's so unsafe for the children to be reunified. A tough decision for a parent to make, but one we need to respect.
And I don't know the answer. I'm just looking for answers. Mr. Gillard, I asked earlier, there apparently are 5 kids that the ACLU has said, hold up a minute, as a part of the court action that have not yet been reunified with their parents, of the 6 that are still out of that first grouping remaining. And I was wondering if you could enlighten us as to what the complications were, what the problems were. I understand some of them might be out of country, the parent may be out of country, and just wondering if you could enlighten us as to what that process is and why we're holding up on 5 of those.
Right. Yes, Congressman. I think it may actually be down to 3 now, but I'm going to double check that, and I can let the committee know. You know, it's certainly not us holding it up. It's respecting the parents' wishes. I think they were particularly complicated cases where the child may have been in danger coming back. The parent was having trouble understanding what the child's rights would be in the U.S. I think one parent was difficult to find. So for those complicated reasons, we're giving the parent a little more time to make the choice. And it's an agonizing choice. Just to pick up on my co-panelist, she said, when I was in Guatemala talking to these families, you would have a father saying, well, look, my life is basically over. And this was someone in his 40s. The gangs may kill me, but I can't bring my child back here. It's just too dangerous. And to see the agony on the face of these parents, and so I think no one should be under the mistaken belief that these parents don't want their children. They are making what is a classic choice for many vulnerable immigrants, that they're just going to have to leave their children in the U.S. And so for these 3 parents, there are certain complications for privacy reasons I can't get into.
Yes, sir.
And so we are just giving them a little more time to respect their wishes.
And I understand that, but I would then turn to Dr. Schoenkoff's testimony. Doctor, the child may not understand that. The child is not likely to understand that if they're of a particularly young age, are they?
Well, it depends on what you mean by understand. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Children don't understand that. But
I think you testified earlier that they don't know what's going on, and even if the parent has made this decision for all reasons that we might agree with, it still creates the problems that you were talking about with toxic stress for the child, particularly if they're, if they're 17, maybe not. But if they're, 4, 5, 6, 7, even 9 or 10, they don't understand all of that, do they?
well, what's wonderful about your question, Congressman, is that for young children, the forcible separation from a parent in our child welfare system, even in circumstances where the child is in danger, is seen as threatening and upsetting for the child. No young child sees the separation as a relief, even in tough circumstances. And so that's the problem. We have to think through the mind of what does this look like for the child, not just the adult.
I appreciate it. I appreciate all of your testimony today, and we're going to try to, make sure that this doesn't happen again, and even where there are cases where there are justified reasons. I think you said, Ms. Abbott, you had about 12 or so that had been referred because there was a belief. we need to try to make it minimal, and if there is a legitimate reason for the separation because the person is a really bad actor, who is the parent who came with them, we need to make sure that we're taking action to get them into a secure situation where they've got somebody who creates that safe space that you talked about, Dr. Shonkoff. And I yield back.
Thank you. Gentlelady from Illinois.